So first off, man, give us an update on the foot. What was the actual diagnosis of it and how are you feeling today?
Yeah, the foot's good today. Thanks for asking. It was two separate injuries, just that ironically happened on the same foot. In the challenge, pushing the boat up the beach, the one where we had the Zach Brown reward, ultimately, I learned after the game, I ended up tearing a ligament in my foot. So that was bad. I don't know if it would have taken me out of the game, but it was certainly, something to contend with. After that challenge, walking back to where they were holding us before we shipped back to our beach, I must have stepped on something that punctured my foot because I began to develop an infection. And docs were telling me in the subsequent days, because it was day 9 when I injured it. And then we started seeing some infection come in on day 10. And that's the one that wasn't going to get better without some serious antibiotics. And they can't give me any sort of treatment in the game. So it was a day-to-day thing. I would check in with the doctors each day and let them have a look at it. And the swelling continued, the inflammation, the redness, the heat. My foot was like an oven. It was brutal. And I'm not sure, Nick, I'm not sure I could have made it all the way through the game with that injury. It ended up after it was over and I went back to Ponderosa and they treated it in the next few days. Dr. Joe said it was probably the worst infection he's seen in the game. So it was bad. But, because I went out early, it wasn't a huge storyline. So there wasn't any reason to cover it more than they did.
So at Tribal Council, we heard you reflecting over your 25-year history with the show. Watching 50 back, do you have anything to add to what you said? And how has the post-game experience been for you?
The game itself was phenomenal. The post-game has been really fun. I didn't anticipate developing as many friendships as I have. I've enjoyed getting to know not only the players in the game that I played with. And look, you never want to end up at Ponderosa after the game. I think, but here's what's unique, maybe a little bit. On most seasons, if you don't make the jury, then they ship you back home. But because this was a big returning player season, they kept us there. They did this back when we did Heroes Villains too. But on 50, they kept those of us who were eliminated pre-jury in a separate Ponderosa. So we don't get to interact with anybody that's in the jury as they come back each night or every other night. But we have our own little Pondy over there. And so then I got to hang out with a lot of the players that I didn't play the game with and get to know them and kick Charlie's ass in ping pong, even with a hurt foot on a daily basis at Ponderosa. That was a lot of fun because I just didn't have – Camilla was one of those. I didn't have a chance to play the game with her or get to know her in the game. But she's got a wicked sense of humor that I love. Very dry. She's just a funny gal, and so I enjoyed her and got to connect with Jenna. I hadn't seen Jenna in years. She was at Ponderosa. So then, when you ask me the question of how has it been, you can bracket it. You've got the game, and then you've got Ponderosa after you get voted out, and then you've got everything that's transpired since the game. And I stay in contact with all of my friends, even though I'm not on social media now. Everyone knows how to reach me, and they know that I'll answer the phone or at least call them back immediately because it's important to me to stay connected and also help some of the younger players through this experience. I think those of us that have done it for many years, that's part of our role to sort of shepherd the group. And look, this was for me at least, this was a handing over of the baton. That's the reason I knew this was my last time is because I believe the younger generation, not just New Era, but just the younger players need to carry the torch forward. And so that's why I don't mind stepping back and stepping away and being done with it. It's been an incredible chapter, but it's time for the newer players to get their opportunities to go back to multiple seasons. And then they'll get that perspective that I have now because it's taken a long time. Clearly, I didn't have it when I went and played Heroes Villains. I still wasn't in the right mindset and have the type of respect and appreciation. It was a driver, Nick, for me going back. I told Probst this in an interview we did prior to me being selected, is I didn't respect the game in Heroes Villains. I didn't. And I was grumpy with producers and those that were interviewing me. I was grumpy with Probst. Probst was grumpy with me. We just kind of have this brother dynamic, but I didn't want to end that way. I didn't want that to be my last experience. It wasn't fair to those I was around, and I'm better than that. And so I wanted a shot to go back and show Probst that I was in some ways that same 25-year-old Colby that applied, 26 years ago.
I love that, man. Yeah, you showed a lot of gratitude out there when you went out. Now, speaking of some of these new players, we saw you get annoyed with Rizzo in the first couple days, but then you kind of had a change of heart there. What was it about Rizzo? What did you see in him? And, what's your relationship like with him today?
Oh, I talked to him a few days ago. He's a good young man. No, I over time. Now, the elements about Rizzo that annoy me still annoy me, right? He talks a lot. He doesn't work nearly enough or hard enough. But that's Rizzo. But over a few days, Nick, I was able to find the real redeeming qualities in Rizzo. And it didn't even take a few days. It was pretty quick. I could see that there was a good young man, very bright. He's an incredibly sharp young guy. He also knows the game better than I do. He's a super fan, but he's played more recent. So make no mistake, there was some strategy in aligning with him, both from the aspect of here's a guy that can help me through the game, this old man that doesn't know the game the way these younger players do, but also saw him and I think I remember telling Genevieve this when she was not at all about keeping Rizzo around, and I said, I think he's malleable, and not in a bad way, but I said I think he's wanting to grab a hold. And now we see it in the show play out where he was doing it with Suri, and he's playing a good, smart game. But early on when we had him on the beach, and I think if Rizzo were here, he'd tell you, even at the point I got voted out, I'm still in great shape with Rizzo. If we come back together in a merge situation, he is an ally of mine. He may not want to carry me all the way to the end, but he's not going to target me immediately after a merge. So he just was somebody I could play with. But also, once I learned about Rizzo's background, his upbringing, his family back home, a lot of that stuff's private, and I'll let him get into that. But it was easy for me to connect and see the good in Rizzo. And I try to do that with everybody. But my connection with Rizzo partly is because we started together, on night one. Also, what we didn't see on TV, but I couldn't sleep in the camp. And so I'd go down on the beach, and the boat we had would stay sort of marooned on the beach at night. And I would sleep beside the boat just to block the wind. And Rizzo would sleep in the boat, but to block the wind as well. It's actually a somewhat practical place to sleep. But that was our nightly sleeping spot. And so we had conversations every night, all of which were on camera, but it didn't play out in the game. So we bonded at night a lot because we'd sort of talk each other, or he'd talk me to sleep because the dude never stops talking. But I had a lot of great stories and a lot of great times with Rizzo when we'd go to bed, he being in the boat, me being on the beach.
Now, we saw Suri refer to you as the head of the snake. So had this twist never happened, or had you made it to the next stage of the game, how did you feel about your position socially with the people that were left behind?
I felt really strong about my position. I had a lot of friends. Suri's not wrong. Not necessarily that I'm the head of the snake, but she's a good enough player and savvy enough to know that I had a lot of connections, and there were allies of mine on several other beaches. And so again, Nick, that's where the luck of this game comes in. You either catch it or you don't. Sometimes you catch it here, you don't catch it over here. I'd say Genevieve had the least amount of luck out of all of us, especially finding two idols that you don't even get to use for yourself. And then the rock draw that put her on that tribe last night that voted her out. I caught an early break in our first tribe swap. Well, bad break when we lost Kyle. Bad break when Q lost his vote because I was locked in with Q and Kyle. Another bad break when I lost my vote. But then a good break when we tribe swap because I got on a good tribe over at the Calo Beach. So you get some luck along the way. You just need a lot of it to matriculate your way through this entire game. But yeah, Suri made the right move. It was the smartest move. I knew she was going to do it. And it was because I know how good she is and I know the way she thinks. And it was the right move for her at that time, no doubt.
You've played old school. You came back for 50. What was the biggest element of the game that either surprised you the most of the new era, or what was the hardest for you to kind of get caught up to speed with?
We were all surprised on 50 that it wasn't pacing up quicker in the game, right? And that's what led to a bloodbath or blood moon of three tribals in one night. We kept waiting for this. We were running the numbers in our heads, just like the fans are, going, wait, how in the world are they going to get rid of this many people? And so the old school guys and gals that came in, we thought we would hit the beach and the intensity level and the pace and speed of it would immediately be at 100. And it wasn't. And so the game really developed slower than what we were anticipating. Not that that was a bad thing. It was odd for us to be in it and for there not to be more action and more things going on. But then, again, 2 eliminations last week, 3 this week. They're going to, they knew what they were doing. They had everything laid out and set out. We were just, left to be sort of tricked by all of it as we went along.